Hello everyone, this is Jan and you're watching my second episode talking about the making of my very own science fiction comic book, Fosphor. The last couple of weeks it kind of fell off the wagon, I have to say. So it was time for some changes. All changes have been positive. I kind of fell off the wagon recording a weekly show with SamuraiOx of I Never Forgot, where we keep ourselves accountable. I've completely lost all accountability as I try and get things in order. But I never stopped drawing on the comic book, and I've been sitting on these videos for a while, so I thought, I better get this out the door since I have an hour to myself this Friday night. What is it, the 14th of September? I thought I'd talk a little bit about pages 10, 11, and 12 that I've been working on. So I guess a little introduction is in order in case you've never been to this channel before and you don't know what Fosphor is all about. Fosphor is my little homemade science fiction adventure comic book. It's about a group of scavengers who happen to come upon some big loot, an ancient location of some sort where they awaken a monster and they get picked off one by one. If this sounds familiar, it's because it's clearly inspired by some of my favorite science fiction movies like Alien and The Thing. But I finally get to play around with this myself and add a little twist here and there to the formula. For example, instead of having a group of scientists, it's more of a group of scavengers rather than the factory or truckers of Alien. Rather than it being really about the monster, the location is of far greater importance to the people there than the creature they uncover. Rather than just the greed of possibly being able to weaponize what they find, like in Aliens, it's already been weaponized, and it's much more about the importance this location has in their culture, and then the fact that it is weaponized, what that actually means, like how it changes their perception of their own history. Now, before I can get to all those juicy plot lines, though, I first need to get this first issue out of the way. In this first issue, I very much try to introduce a whole slew of characters. It being a comic book, there's a lot more time, depending on how many issues the run is going to be, of course, but there's a lot more time to play around with things. Like you get to control the passage of time a lot more, and things don't have to happen as fast as, say, in a 90-minute to a 2-hour movie. So I introduced a whole range of characters in this first episode, and I hope that I can build off that, where you get to feel for these characters. There's some very young kids working in this factory. There's a whole range of classes of people, like in the society on board, but also in the wider world that you get to know, and how they interact. And I really want you to feel for them, so that when it's time for them to kick the bucket, part of the excitement of reading the story, of course, is whether or not your favorite character gets to make it till the end. So while I've been away from the internet, I have to say there's been a lot of there's been a lot of thinking about, like how I've been going about my presence on the internet and like making the comic book. And then in the last couple of weeks, I've not been able to work on the comic book as much because of other things in my life that kind of took over. And that's not all been, it's unfortunate for the comic book, but it's also been good because, when you have time away, it kind of puts things in perspective. That was definitely something I needed to do. I feel very much like, I don't know, like I feel very much like this is what I want to do. I have this time right now to make this comic book. I need to take this time to make this comic book. I'm serious about making my art work for me, and eventually like make a living doing this. But I also understand that I'm at a very fortunate position in my life where I can actually just take the time to learn this craft and like figure out how I want to render and how I want things to look and how, like what works and what doesn't work. And it's tricky because I want every page to be the best one yet, but there's so much stuff that I've never really drawn before, so I just kind of go at it, and then some come out better than others, but like every page is a learning experience. And so I kind of want to talk you through how I go about tackling some of these pages. So let's talk a little bit about this page. I started at the bottom. So I started in reverse after laying out in red pencil what was supposed to be on this page. So I started over here, got some very fine detail in, and I'm very fond of how this all came out. But then this section of the page being as detailed as it is, I figured I needed to do things a little bit different over here. Like I spoke in last week's video, I'm trying to be mindful of the surrounding panels and the surrounding art. So, like on the previous page, I continued some of the backdrop in between the panels, which made it very busy. And I made that go up in smoke over here. And so for these three panels over here, which I redesigned just for the actual art on the page, because I think it's just one picture actually. But I felt the need to tell more of a story here with what's going on. Like I had the story over here of them being really peeved at losing this game, being on the losing end, In the original panel, it's just these two characters. She's looking in shock at what's happening. Because I couldn't get the anatomy quite right and quite to match up, I just drew a different character here flipping the board. But I felt like there needed to be a continuation, instead of just a single panel. So you can see her walk into the background so that she shows up over here. And this guy is over here talking to someone else. They come up with a different plan. She tries to cheer him up. They bump into someone else who's not watching where he's going, so she decides to help out, and there she is helping out. So there's lots of stuff going on the page for people to discover, to enjoy. So I drew this over here because I was talking about this busyness in a lot more simplified style. I feel like, the characters are a little bit more cartoony to contrast all of this over here. So that's kind of how I got to work. I'm still a little, I'm very happy with how the art came out, but I'm still a little worried about how well defined these characters are from one another and the background characters. And it's definitely going to be something that's going to be a lot more clearer once I add color or the gray tones. But in the black and white art, I think it should be perfectly clear. And so that's something I feel like I'm struggling with. Maybe you don't agree, but that's something that's always on my mind here. So let's have a sneak peek at the next page. If you remember, I made these rough inks sketches after the rough pencils in my 100-day run. So this page right here, they got their plan for the next round in this ball game that they're playing. I feel like she's getting a little bit too much attention, so I'm actually thinking of maybe swapping these two out so that you recognize her now, so she can be over here and he gets to have a bigger picture to burn his image into your mind. He might be a bigger character later on in the story, so you can already have a moment, like a close-up. But then over here, all of a sudden I cut back to a lady we met on a single page, who was having a fight with the captain. So now she's in the surveillance room, like you can see this over here on the screen, and I just cut back there, and all of a sudden, like I'm looking at this page and I'm like, is this going to be perfectly clear? Like, so we're really focused on this one scene, so we cut to something else, but it's just a tiny panel. Like, is that going to be obvious that it's a cutaway? Are you going to remember who that is? I mean, of course, you're reading this comic book probably in like 5 minutes, but like, I'm just thinking about these things. So I thought, like, I need to work on this. And I remember in the rough pencils version, there was more of this scene, which here got boiled down to just a single panel. And I also felt like, well, this team is gathering their forces and strategizing, and then they go out and about. And then the other team is kind of doing the same, but is that obvious? I'm not so sure that it's obvious that they're on the opposing team like this. So, even though I did make a bit more of an effort to make sure that these guys are already in the background over here and here. So this is more of a callback then. So let me show you just the layouts, and I hope this shows up in red. Okay, so the panel. This is blurry. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is this right over here, I'm gonna break into two. Right? So this panel is gonna go into this little box over here. Over here is going to be a group shot of the red team, or the bad team, whatever name they had. So it's very clear, like, okay, so this is the one team that you just watched play. So just to make sure who's on the team, they're right over here. Okay, to that one, they're running off. Forget about the centerpiece over here for a second. So we take this one. And so it's surveillance, so it's in the background, it's kind of sneaking around. So I put panels, I put two panels over here, but they're behind these. So they're like receding, right? And they're gonna be very dark. And it's gonna be very clear, like it's surveillance, like lots of computer screens, whatnot. So she gets to have two panels over here and some comments. So she gets a little bit more of a story, like it's a little bit more like what is going on behind these scenes, right? This panoramic panel over here is going to be what I've got right here, like another shot of the ship and people playing the game, you know, with passing on the ball and hiding it. And then over here, I'm going to continue the surveillance a little bit more, again, like behind the scenes. The actual scene that you're going to be looking at are these two. So group shot of the other team, and then cut away to them going about their business and going after the other team, falling into their trap, with more of that on the next page. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little glimpse of the next page, and like how I'm going to expand on the storytelling while still keeping it on just one single page. I think this might just work. I'm really looking forward to drawing those surveillance panels like behind the scenes. I think it's going to be something cool, like in the background, you know. I'm going to doodle away on those. So yeah, that was another little episode of Making Phosphor, my little sci-fi comic book adventure. I'm Jan. Thanks for watching. As always, I'll be seeing you next time I upload a video. Hopefully in a week. Let's see how I can stay on track with Ox and get these comic books made, shall we? So, till next time. And before I forget, a little congratulations is in order. Jeff LAfferty completed 100 days of making comics. He's been doing amazing. Besides actually funding the comic book already and finishing fully painted every single page of the Berserkernaut, he's already working hard on issue 2. And if you are not familiar with this comic book, I urge you to check it out. You can find it over on his channel. I'll put a link down below. But you can still catch the first issue on Indiegogo. It's an ongoing campaign now, so you no longer have to worry if you missed out and didn't realize there was a campaign going. You can still add to the add your order to his mailing list. At the same time, right now, Ox is finally shipping issue 8, successfully kickstarted some time ago, but because we had to wait a little longer, he's actually bundling it with issue 9, so you get 2 for the price of 1. Be sure to check out Ox in the links down below as well. There's tons more indie comics where that came from. Gazbot is back online with the Horror A4 report. I'll put a link to his video. Chris McQuinlan has just finished his first issue of Monkey Junk. So there's definitely more than enough indie comics to go around in case you're getting a little bored with what you can find on the shelves in your comic book store. I'd find that very hard to believe, but just in case, there's lots of us here on YouTube working on our comic books. There's lots of us trying to get our comic books into your hands. You don't have to look very far. Thanks for watching this video. As you can see, this page came along nicely. I hope you like what you see. If so, leave a comment down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.